今天是12月29号，很快的2024，我们即将告别。对许多生重症的来讲，告别每一年，也就是他可以跨入下一年，都是很不容易的事情。美国公共电视 Pbs 有一个非常著名的节目叫 Frontline， 特别在西奈山医院 Mount Sinai 医院允许之下，他拍摄了一些人在临终之前他们的想法，这叫生命之旅。在 Pbs 的纪录片里头，记了人在生与死的交关时刻。我们走在那个时刻，才理解这一生我们留下了多少遗憾，这一生我们留下了多少难忘的事情，而这一刻我们该如何面对自己的生与死，这是一个难解的课题。有一句话在这个 Frontline 里头，我看了非常感动：活着不是等待死亡，而是等待一个奇迹。其实过去的哲学家就曾经说过一句话：你并不需要恐惧死亡，因为当你死亡那一刻，你的生命已经不在了，你根本不需要恐惧。它是伊比鸠鲁所说的话。而医学的科技呢，现在日益越新，所以面对生死，我们其实没有正确的答案。明明过去可能你就要死了，可是却有一种新的药又把你给救活了。它使得人在面对生死的时候，很多答案更加的复杂。
Nobody wants to die, and nobody wants to die badly.
Where patients, families, and doctors face the hardest decisions.
If you're tired and you don't want us to do this anymore, that's okay with me.
And the courage to let go.
I think doing nothing is a very important consideration. It really depends on what you want.
Hi, can you squeeze my hand? There you go.
Robert Bernardini is 47 years old. He had a massive stroke 2 years ago and has been living in a nursing home. His cost of care is covered by Medicaid.
He was here 2 months ago, here, also with pneumonia. He got better. They sent him back to the nursing home and came back in Tuesday. And since then, he's been on the machine.
Nearly 95% of our patients cannot communicate because of either their underlying illness or because of the heavy sedation we're providing. In a perfect world, the patient designates a healthcare proxy and has a discussion about what their preferences would be at the end of life. But many of the patients who end up in the intensive care unit, those discussions have never happened.
The critical care doctors.
And this causes a tremendous amount of burden for everybody because they now have to make life or death decisions for somebody else.
这一次，这个艰难的工作落在 Robert 妻子身上。
I don't know what to do about this. Should I just let him keep living in this condition? I don't know. I don't want him to suffer anymore. I mean, I'm suffering, and I know he is also. Now I can't handle this no more.
最害怕的是后悔，万一再撑一会儿，就有新的疗法可以治了呢。
Here in the bone marrow transplant unit, a team of oncologists treats people with blood cancer who a generation ago would have died. But now a bone marrow transplant gives them a chance of survival. A bone marrow transplant is one of the most drastic therapies in oncology, and it's expensive. The cost of a transplant alone can be close to $250,000.
Stem cell transplantation is viewed as the final strategy that has the potential to cure diseases that are otherwise incurable. We're using super lethal doses of radiation. We're talking about radiation that patients were exposed to nearly with the A-bomb, and they get sick enough so that they can die from infection or bleeding or other organ toxicities. The mortality from transplant can be 25–30% from the treatment. On the other hand, we're dealing with diseases which will otherwise be fatal. So that's a struggle we have all the time, trying to weigh the potential risk of death from the procedure and the risk of death from the disease.
Some patients want to know what are my chances of surviving. But even when the numbers are low, they still go for it because the option of living is worth it.
John Maloney, a corrections officer, was 55 when he was first diagnosed with multiple myeloma. He's tried every available treatment, including 2 bone marrow transplants, but his myeloma keeps coming back. Although doctors believe they can no longer control his myeloma, John doesn't want to stop treatment, so they've agreed to send him home on a mild chemotherapy.
Sometimes there are patients for whom I think about them and I wish we'd stopped earlier because I think they suffered unnecessarily. But in the moment, in the heat of that moment, maybe I didn't realize it at that time. Sometimes there are forces outside of the patient and myself that are the patient's family, other physicians, and so sorting that out can be very, very tricky in those moments.
张就是其中一位。
I do think that the disease is getting worse. If John wants to try further therapy, then we can try to tweak this regimen that you've received, but I'm not sure it will really help.
We'll talk.
All right, John, I'm going to be back to check on you a little bit later. Okay? All right. All right. All right. And Debbie, I'll be back later. Okay. Okay? All right.
We can't keep bomb in your body, John. We can't. That's the bottom line.
Okay. Bomb me. I'd rather be like that than dead.
It's
very difficult for me to say to a patient, I don't think you have any treatment opportunity. I never said that to any patient. Never. I think I can humanly say that to a patient. I always say, well, we can do this or the other, even if it's in a palliative way, but I always say there is something to do.
给人希望是善意，不给也是善意。